I'm Sylvie. I'm a clinical psychologist from Psych in Singapore. With this whole COVID-19 situation, many cities are going to lockdown. So I'm here to talk about how, while staying home, we can keep ourselves and our families both mentally and physically safe. The concern that I want to talk about is what we can do to help ourselves and our children cope with being indoors indefinitely. While being indoors and not being able to go out and socialize freely can become a source of additional stress, we also need to understand that people of different ages cope with stress in different ways. So we should be very clear with our children. We should tell them that it's okay to feel upset and assure them that they are safe as long as they take the necessary precautions. You can also share your feelings with them and explain facts about the spread of the disease in simple ways instead of keeping them in the dark. Children might interpret the news differently than you do, and it is important for you to be aware of that and to also remain calm and respond to them without minimizing their feelings. So children love structure, and usually when they get to go to school, schools provide some form of structure to their day. They know which lessons are coming and what's next and so on. With being indoors, it can cause a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty is difficult for many people, especially for kids. So while we can't give them a certain timing when they can be outdoors again, we can help them have some certainty about how their day is going to go. So what we can do is provide a timetable for them, and that might be helpful. It could be a very simple visual timetable that you use at the start of the day. Maybe just write one up like wake up, get ready, have breakfast, e-learning, lunch, exercise routine, leisure time, dinner. It can be very simple, but having this timetable helps the child structure his or her day and remove some of the uncertainty that they may otherwise feel. So, whilst children may get bored from being indoors, what we can do is to vary their activities daily. And also, when you vary their activities, perhaps you could allocate different parts of the house as different areas where they can do certain activities. For example, the kitchen might be where they could have water play. The living room could be their leisure area, gameplay area. The dining table could be their homework revision area. So between each activity that they have scheduled, they can actually move around, get a movement break, and have this sense that they're going to different places to do different things. So while there should be some variety of activities, with being indoors, it is likely that the amount of activities you can do is limited. Still, with some creativity, there can be a lot of fun activities that not just your children can do, but perhaps the whole family can be involved in. Workouts, for example, can be included into the daily routine. Yoga can be made fun for children, like likening poses to different animals, seeing how long we can hold each pose for as a game. Teaching them how to mimic different animals as part of the yoga poses. Even household chores, and that can help to take a load off what you have to do as well. You can modify household chores into games. For example, like who can mop a certain amount of area in the fastest time and the winner gets a reward, things like that. So helping your children do some chores while also feeling like there's a variety of activities, and besides this also help them to learn some responsibility for the house's cleanliness. An important point is that with e-learning, if your child is on online learning, it is likely that your child will be having a lot more screen time than usual. And generally, too much screen time has been shown by research to be detrimental for the psychological welfare of children as well as the physical welfare. So ensure that they have frequent and regular breaks from the screen. This lockdown actually gives us a chance to spend more time with our children and hence to help them learn valuable skills. Perhaps instead of just online learning, they could learn things like emotional regulation, emotional literacies, where you can help them to understand their feelings which are usually things that we don't really have a chance to, or don't really have enough time to teach our children in the midst of our work days and all that. So this might be a good way and good time for us to help them learn these helpful skills that will be important for them throughout their whole lives. For example, like even deep breathing, meditation, mindfulness, progressive muscle relaxation. These are things that you can easily research and help your child to learn as coping skills for times when they feel upset or emotionally dysregulated. Anyway, there are a lot of activities that you can probably find online that gives you an idea of what we can do indoors. Some that I saw that were interesting were like games night, trivia nights where we make up our own trivia questions, charades, board games, or even a teach a skill night. So maybe have each family member research and learn a skill and then present it to the whole family once a week to teach them about that skill. A third common concern is how we can cope with work. Being at home with our whole family means that we have to take care of all of the family members without much respite. We also have to deal with housework, have to deal with our own work if you're working from home. It can get really overwhelming. So what we can do is to actually engage the family with housework. Could perhaps do up a roster. And in this roster, it could be such that if a family member completes their whole share of the workload that is specified on the roster, then they get a reward or positive reinforcement of some form. It could be as simple as they get to pick a movie that they want, or get to pick whatever food they want delivered on that day. So generally, I think it's sometimes tough because women may tend to want to do more of the housework and take care of others. But it's very important to remember that if you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to be a lot harder for you to have the proper mindset and mental health to take care of your family members. If you're really overwhelmed, we can always reach out to our friends, family, neighbors. There's absolutely no shame in reaching out for support in order to provide our family with better care. There's no shame at all. It signifies love and a willingness to do whatever is needed to help our family. If you have no one to reach out to, you can also contact social workers in your area if that's possible. And remember that we are just all doing whatever we need to get through these difficult times. As for work, boundaries are really important. For example, don't answer emails and calls after a certain time if that's at all possible. And every single day, we should definitely craft out a certain period of time to ourselves. I understand that maybe some of us are cramped into small living spaces like I am, but in general, if you would like to, you could even just hide out in a restroom, hide out under the blankets, just have at least 15 minutes alone, completely to yourself, where you have to do nothing but meditate, focus on something you want to do. While it could be difficult knowing that you have so many other things to do, you must remember that you can't take care of your family if your mind is starting to go into shambles. You're doing self-care so that you can better care for your family. So remember, 15 minutes of mindfulness, of just meditating, can be very beneficial for us, and you should make it a strict rule. Of course, for some of us, maybe if you have babies, it may be harder, but get your family members to take turns taking care of the baby, whatever you need, or plug in. Just have at least 10 or 15 minutes a day of peace and quiet and absolute aloneness to get to have your personal space back in these times where we are cooped up with everyone else in the same house for a long time. And again, when things get too much, we could again monitor our thoughts, right? Some thoughts are more exhausting than others. For example, if I'm constantly thinking, I can't deal with this is way too much for me to handle, it's going to lead to a lot more stress and anxiety, in myself, and it's going to make it that much harder to cope. If I came up with a balanced thought like, this is a tough time, but I have made it through other really tough times, and I'm sure I can do this too. This thought makes me feel a lot less anxious, stressed out, and hopeless. So one thing that we need to remember is that our thoughts are really important, and in times when we feel like we can't cope anymore, it may be beneficial for us to examine our thoughts and find out what's unhelpful and try to find more helpful ways to think about life. Social isolation is definitely going to be difficult, but thankfully with technology, we have many other ways to reach out to our friends and loved ones. So definitely schedule in regular FaceTiming with friends, emails, voice messages. Just reach out to others as much as you can through social media so that you do not feel so isolated. In summary, today we have talked about 3 common concerns. The first one would be how we can help ourselves and our family stay calm and positive amidst all this stress. And one of the methods that I talked about is how our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and bodily sensations are all interconnected and affecting one another. So we could change how we feel this anxiety and stress by changing our thoughts, getting balanced thoughts, or we could change our behaviors. For example, like engaging ourselves in more productive activities, or we could change our bodily sensations by practicing mindfulness and deep breathing. Another thing that we talked about was actually how we could help ourselves and our children cope with being indoors indefinitely. So the main points of what I discussed was that we could establish structure, vary activities and locations in the house where the activities are carried out, teach them important life skills such as appropriate ways to cope with difficult emotions. And the third one would be how we could cope with housework as well as employment work when it gets overwhelming. So definitely engage family, friends, neighbors, get any help that you can, reach out, set your boundaries. For example, you could choose not to reply to work emails after a certain timing, and always structure a time for yourself, at least 10 to 15 minutes a day with no interruptions, where you can be completely alone and practice some mindfulness or other self-care methods that you might want to try. Remember, this alone time is a necessity, not a luxury. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to me today. I wish you all the best and hope we all stay safe during these trying times.